Yo, what is good, YouTube? Welcome back to another JC2K video. In today's video, we are going to be doing a tier list here where I rank all of the gambling opals here in NBA 2K24 MyTEAMs. The opals that you could only get or can only get from buying packs here in NBA 2K24 MyTEAM. Yes, there are a couple of cards on here who were available in different forms as well. Maybe the Easter event, Jokic as an Ascension board reward this season. Lonzo Ball was buyable with VC for a few days. So, like, there's a few on here that were buyable or earnable or whatever in different ways directly, but not many. And I think I pretty much named all of them right there, actually. So, and I did include those guys anyway because they're still gambling opals. So I think this should be an interesting list. I obviously do not encourage opening packs, and if this gambling only stuff does not change for season 6, I really don't say, to be honest. It's going to be interesting to see what happens, though, for sure. So, regardless, let's hop right into the video. Let's see what we can do. Starting off with Iguodala, who is very good. But you got to remember, gambling opals are the best cards in the game. Well, with the exception of, obviously, a couple of the gambling dark matters and overalls. But, in general, I'd say the gambling opals are probably, like, the majority of the top cards in the game. So I think Iguodala is an amazing card, but this list has many of the most elite cards in the game on it. So I think it's probably pretty fair to put him A tier. I don't think that's a reach or anything at all to put him in the A tier. He's got a great fade. He moves really well, but I guess his release would be the one thing I would nitpick. His defense is incredible, all that, but I don't know. Ben Matherin's not good. I think when you rank him among the best of the best, I just don't think the release is quite up to par. I certainly don't think his SIGs are up to par. And honestly, even like badge-wise, not quite as complete and perfect, but he's still a very good card. Still an opal. It's just all these guys have 20-some-odd Hall of Fame badges and elite all-around stats. So you got to be special to be higher on the list, and Ben Matherin is not exactly that. Kind of honestly, same thing with a guy like Blake Griffin. I think Blake probably does enough to be CC tier just because of his size at 6'9", and because he does actually defend quite well. Pretty versatile defender, super athletic. Just release is not great on him. That's the main flaw. SIGs are also not insanely great either, but I don't know. I think C tier is probably fair. Brad Beal's just an undersized guard. He's a decent scorer, but nothing too insane. I wouldn't think. Like, I don't think he's an unbelievably elite offensive card or anything, and he's certainly not an unbelievably elite defensive card. He's one of the more undersized guys in this list as well. I think, again, he's like pretty mediocre. Honestly, I'd say Brandon Ingram is also D tier to me. I know we're starting off with a lot of the lower tier guys, but I just think when you compare these guys to the best cards in the game, which is what the top cards in this list are, they're just not in the same tier. Brandon Ingram's release is super baited. It's not very, very good at the 2, and I don't think he's that great of a card overall. I understand his stats and badges are phenomenal, but bad release at a very important position where you need to be an elite level shooter with an elite release is tough, and I just don't think Brandon Ingram is that great at all, personally. So Brandon Miller is much better. I think he's probably A-ish because he's 6'9", and he's got a really, really smooth, easy release, pretty good SIGs, really complete badges, has a movable enforcer, bunch of off defensive badges. He's one of the newer opals, and the newer opals continue to get better and better and more complete in general in terms of the way that they are souped on paper. And Brandon Miller's phenomenal. I think he's definitely A tier. I think pretty easily so. I think Cade is S. I think he's my favorite point guard in the game still. I think Cade is just phenomenal. He's an elite level card who does really everything well on the court at a very high level. Versatile defender who has a very nice release. Everything except for fade. That's the one thing he does not do well. His fade is bad, but his release is super easy. He moves great, and he's a good, big, versatile defensive 6'7" point guard. I think Cade is a phenomenal card. And I'm also realizing that I'm already almost 4 minutes of this video, and I've only ranked like 7 cards, so I better speed this up because I got 40 more to go. Chet Holmgren. I'm going to go A for Chet. Good card. Very, very solid. Good release. Good slasher. Good everything. Not an insane shot creator. Not an unbelievable release, but definitely a good card. Definitely A tier. Dame is so mid. He's undersized. His SIGs aren't that top tier. He's just not among the best of the best point guards, and just cards in general on this list. He's not there. Danny Ferry is legitimately, I think, in the argument for best small forward in the game, and that includes like every single small forward in the game, even 100 overall KG. He's that good. Incredible release. Amazing, honestly. Really good movement as well. 6'10", great size, great SIGs. Elite card. Definitely S tier in my opinion. D-Rob is like right at the borderline for me of S tier. I think he probably does get my S tier spot. I understand that a lot of people like Wilt more than D-Rob, and I don't totally blame y'all. And for those y'all who have left those comments, I've gotten a couple of comments about how Wilt is generally a little low on my list, and they think that he's better than D-Rob. I understand that. For my playstyle personally, what I want out of my center, I like D-Rob's release more. I like his shooting ability more. I feel more confident with him in that area, and I still think it's 7-1. He's still a phenomenal defender, still really versatile. I don't think he is really a liability whatsoever on the defensive end. I still think he's phenomenal. So I like him better than Wilt. For me, I still put him in S tier. It's just my opinion. DeMarcus Cousins is good, but he's 6'10". Doesn't have insane size. Got pretty good SIGs. Release is not bad at all either. He is a really good power forward. I think he's A or B. Like he's probably A, honestly, at this point still. Good card. Not an insanely elite card, but good card for sure. I think Wade is good, but he doesn't have move enforcer. He's only 6'4", and his release actually isn't that great. He's literally amazing in every other area, but that is actually a few different legitimate nitpicks. I don't think his release is that great. He's not super tall, and he doesn't have movable enforcer, which is a pretty important badge. To be fair, a lot of cards on this list don't have movable enforcer, but I do think Wade is pretty, yeah. B tier is probably fair. He's good, but he's not unbelievably great. Gerald Wallace is an amazing defender and pretty good offensively. Nice release, 6'7", really big, versatile slasher. He's not a shot creator at all, really, but I still think he's big enough defensively, versatile enough defensively. Just overall good enough where I still think he probably cracks the A tier. Giannis is also going to go A tier. I'm realizing my list might be a little slanted. I don't have anybody in the middle yet. We're going to fill in the middle a little bit. We'll see. But Giannis is also A tier. He's 7 foot. He's got great length. He's obviously one of the most versatile elite defenders in the game. Insane slasher, and the releases, while not amazing, it's okay. He gets every badge, like as all these cards do, of course. He can be a solid shooter. He's not a bad card at all. Definitely A tier. Very, very good option. Akeem Olajuwon, he's my favorite Opal big in the game, personally. I think he's just absolutely phenomenal. He does everything on the court at a high level. Love his release. He can shot create well. He's an amazing defender. I feel like he's Wilt with a better release, basically, is what Akeem is, in my personal opinion. And I think he's S tier for sure. Hito, I would say is probably B. He's got a good release, and he's 6'10", small forward. He's just a little bit... He's like Michael Porter Jr., but better, is my opinion, honestly, about Ito. I think he's really, really good. Hito Turkoglu has always been a good card in 2K, and his release is pretty good, but I just think he's not quite unbelievably great. I think B tier is probably pretty fair, and honestly, probably towards the lower tier of B tier. I like JR. Is he better than a guy like Brandon Ingram and Ben Matherin? To me, probably. He's not horrible. I just don't love him at all. I said I like, but I don't love the card. His release has not been good all year. That's the first thing about JR, honestly. And he's not the most elite defender. I will say this is about as good as JR ever is going to be defensively. He has really, really good defensive stats, but he doesn't have move enforcer. And his release is pretty good. SIGs are okay. SIGs could be a little better, probably. I think C tier is fair, honestly. I don't like Jalen Green. Bad release, only 6'6" for a point guard. Not a very good card at all. I'm not a fan of him. I think he is definitely D tier. I'm not a big fan of that card whatsoever. I really like J Kidd. I think he's at least B tier. I almost kind of want to... No, he's definitely B. I would say Wade is probably a little bit better than J Kidd. Their releases are pretty similar. Defensively, they're pretty similar. J Kidd might be a tiny bit better. Wade is definitely a better slasher, probably a slightly better shot creator, I would say. I like J Kidd a lot. I think he goes B tier, though. I think that's totally fair. Honestly, Jaylen Brown, a really great standing dunker. Release could give you a little bit to be desired, but everything else is really nice. Great SIGs, great fade, great standing dunker, which is really valuable at the shooting guard position, and a really, really good defender as well. I think he's B tier as well. Not a bad card. Tatum is good, bad fade, but everything else is really nice. Things about him. He's not an unbelievable shot creator either, though his SIGs could certainly be better. So he's got a couple. I guess that's the other nitpick is SIGs and fade. So animations, besides his catch and shoot jumper, could use a little bit of work for Tatum, but stat and badge wise, he's great. He's got good size. He's a very solid card, and I think B tier is probably fair. Joel Embiid, I'm going to go... I kind of want to put... I don't like this Embiid card. I'm going C. I just don't like him. I understand he's big at center, but here's the thing. He doesn't playmake at all. I just don't like I don't see the value to this card that everybody else loves. I mean, people don't love the card, but I think he's C tier. I really do. He's a non-playmaking big without an elite release. That's just not that great. John Wall is really good at PG. I put him right there with D-Wade and J Kidd. Honestly, similar in size to those guys. Faster release than both. Probably not quite as good of a defender as either of them, to be fair, but he's got an elite, super fast release, and he's an elite level slasher with pretty good SIGs as well. Very fun offensive card to use. John Wall's a stud. I think B tier is very fair. I think Karl-Anthony Towns is pretty good as well. I think he's probably B tier. He's like a worse version of DeMarcus Cousins. Not as good of a playmaker and not as good of a release. Is he bad enough to go C tier? I don't think so. I like the card. I don't love the card, but I think he's pretty good. B tier is fair. KD is probably C tier to me. I understand he's 6'10", but his release is not amazing, and his SIGs are not that great either. His fade is very good if you know how to time it, but that's a very niche percentage of the 2K community that I think actually times KD's fade to both sides consistently because it is tough to time. But if you have that down, he can be a really good card. In general, though, I honestly think C tier is probably a fair spot to put him. Clay's B to me. I don't think he's quite A, but I think he's good. Great shooter, great release, good defender, good slasher. Like, good card, no doubt. Very versatile defender. Very solid. I feel like Iggy and Gerald Wallace, number one, Iggy's fade I like better, honestly, and I think Iggy's a better shot creator. Gerald Wallace is just bigger and more versatile defensively. I feel like he's more powerful as a slasher. For me personally, I like both those guys over Clay, but I couldn't see the argument for Clay in A tier. I just would put him B personally. Kobe is obviously S tier, one of my favorite cards in the game. Obviously, Opal Kobe. Pink Diamond Kobe doesn't matter, one of the best cards in the game regardless. Opal Kobe is just the Pink Diamond with better badges, and his release not very quick. He's just a better version of the Pink Diamond. Phenomenal card. Obviously, one of the best cards in the game. Obviously, S tier. That's a no-brainer. Kyrie is 6'2" and not a great slasher. Obviously, he's one of the worst gambling opals in the game. That's okay. Love you, Kyrie. Mavs legend. Mavs been cooking in real life. I'm a huge Kyrie fan, but his card in my team is not that good. Lamar Odom is a 6'10" small forward, which does provide a lot of value. Really solid release as well. But is he good enough? I mean, he's better than Hito, but is he better enough than Hito to be A tier? I actually think we're going to go with maybe. Probably not. Yeah, actually, I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt. 6'10" small forward, good release. I will say SIGs aren't that great, but I really did like the release. And defensively, he's very good. He's also super athletic. And he's big. I think he's better than Hito. I think he probably does deserve to be A tier. Very good card. LeBron is tough for me. I am so disappointed that I quick sold my LeBron because I think he's so good. I think he's probably A tier though at this point. If I'm only putting 10 guys in the S tier, I don't know if LeBron is one of those 10 guys who's personally as good as he is. He's right on the borderline though, so I might consider moving him up. We'll see. But for right now, I'm going to go high A for LeBron. Absolutely phenomenal card. Lonzo does get an S tier spot for me. D-Book dribble style, really good same side burst. Pro 2 fade. So he's got a couple of good SIGs to go to. He's an elite defender. One of the better defensive point guards in the game. One of the things that gives him so much value for me as a card, despite him not having as good of escape and being honestly on paper as good of a card as some of the other guys below him, is the fact that he plays that point guard position. The positional value is a big deal, and that puts him in S tier for me. I understand his movement isn't quite as good as some of the guys in A tier, same thing with his release probably, but I do really like Lonzo. He moves pretty well, and I honestly do like his release a lot too. Great fade for sure. Great slasher, big, versatile defensive point guard who is very complete. I think he's a stud. Luka's good. He's 6'7", which gives legit value at PG, and he's a good defender as well. The thing about Luka, though, is his animations offensively are not that great. He doesn't have great SIGs, and he's also not an elite level shooter with the release that he has. So he's got a good amount of space to get his three ball off. At the same time, a 6'7" point guard with that type of size and versatility defensively is always going to be at least solid. So I'm going to put him C tier. Mac McClung is 6'2". That is legitimately just too small. I mean, he's got actually pretty good animations and a decent release, but I just don't think he's higher than D tier. He's high D, I guess, but he's not that great. Miles Turner's fine. He's an A tier big, good A tier big. He's got a smooth, easy release. He's a good stretch big, really good defender as well. Playmaking wise leaves a little to be desired, but I think he's good enough to be like a lower A tier guy. Definitely not a bad card at all. Jokic is like really high C or low B for me. I think he's low B. He has a better fade than Embiid does. He's a better playmaker than Embiid is. I think speed wise they're pretty similar. Honestly, defensive badge wise, Jokic is as good as Embiid pretty much, pretty close to it. And I do like his release as much as Embiid's as well, I would say, if not more. He's got a better step back for sure. I think he's better than Embiid. I would put Embiid B tier, and I think that's probably a pretty fair spot. Pascal Siakam, honestly, he is A tier, and people sleep on that card. I don't really know why. He's very, very good. Super fast release. I know it's kind of ugly, but it is very quick, and he actually moves quite well. Very good defender. If you have Pascal Siakam, give him a chance. He's good. Pau Gasol, C tier. Not great. He's just kind of there. He's Embiid, honestly. He's Embiid with a little more playmaking maybe, but he's basically the same card. They do the same thing on the court, and I think it's totally fair to put him in that spot for that reason. Penny Hardaway's going to go B for me. His release just isn't good enough for him to be A tier in my opinion, but I do think he's a good card. He moves well. He's a good slasher. Pretty complete stat and badge-wise. I do like Penny Hardaway. Rashard Lewis's release is absolutely horrific. That's enough to put him in D tier for me. Legitimately. Everything else with the card is pretty good, but his release is awful. So legitimately good D tier for that. I think Ray Allen probably has to go C tier because his release isn't bad, and he is a really good shooter, pretty athletic. I don't know. Maybe I'm sleeping on a couple of these cards. Like Ben Mathurin feels like he's too low as well because his release isn't bad. I remember using him. His release wasn't terrible. I know his movement isn't great, but we're going to move both those guys up. I don't like Brandon Ingram's release at all, so I'm actually going to leave him where he is. Y'all notice, by the way, that almost everybody in the D tier is a point guard. It's just because of size thing, honestly, more than anything else. But yeah, that is unfortunately the case at the point guard position. Regardless, I would say, okay, moving on. Ron Artest, definitely S tier. We now have 7 S tiers. He might be the best opal in the game, legitimately. That's how good that Ron Artest card is. I think he's insane. He is 100% S tier without a doubt in my mind. Rudy Gay is right there on the borderline of S tier as well. With guys like LeBron and Iggy, I think I'm going to put him S tier because his release is so good and his movement is so good. He dribbles at an elite level, has Trey escape, which is my favorite escape in the game, and one of the best releases in my team. I truly love the card. I understand defensively on paper his badges are not quite as good as some of the guys underneath him, but I still think he's an exceptional defender as well. Super good player build. Add some defense on him especially, and he is just absolutely a dog. S tier for sure in my opinion. Big fan of Rudy Gay. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. I would probably put at this point Shai in B tier as well. As much as I do like Shai, his movement is just not that insane. I will realize I don't have any point guards in A tier. I kind of have like Lonzo and Cade in S tier, and then everybody else a couple tiers below. I'm sure I could move a couple guys up, and if I was moving up, it'd be like Wade, SGA probably would be the two I'd move up. Wade's release is just not that good, though. I'm moving SGA up. I'm putting SGA in A. I was a little low on him in my best cards tier list. I will admit, I definitely put him too low, and he's a good card. I think he deserves to be A tier. His release is good. He's 6'6" at PG. He's got good size. Pretty versatile defender. Certainly not a bad option at all. Shane Battier is an amazing 3-and-D card, but that is about all he does. His release is pretty good. Defensively, he's phenomenal, but he's not that great of a shot creator. He is a really good slasher, and he does provide pretty good value. I feel like he and Gerald Wallace are actually very similar cards, but I think he's maybe slightly worse. He and Gerald Wallace do the same thing. I think he's A tier. He's got to be A tier if Gerald Wallace is. Honestly, Sean Marion is also A tier. I can't put him S tier, but I want to. I mean, he's amazing defensively. He's only 6'7", but he's got, in my opinion, a very fast, honestly, very easy release. I understand it's ugly, but it's so easy to green. I don't understand the people who do not like Sean Marion. Really, really good card. Definitely A tier, in my opinion. Psycho T is going to be S tier for sure. He gets the second to last S tier spot on this list. Phenomenal, phenomenal card. Does everything, in all honesty, really, really well in the court. He's only 6'9", but his release is insane. He's got some of the best animations in the game, period. Especially at the power forward position, and his stats and badges are as complete as literally anybody in the game. That's how good he is. And I would say, obviously, S tier. Tyrese Halliburton is a bad release 6'5" PG who's not an insane athlete. That card was never good. Honestly, the day he came out, he wasn't that good. Kind of like Damian Lillard, an obvious D tier for sure. And then we have Wilt. I have room for one more S tier guy, and I'm trying to decide if it's Wilt, LeBron, Sean Marion, or Andre Iguodala. And honestly, this is going to be a controversial opinion, but no, it's not. I'm putting Wilt in the S tier, I think. I've been too low on Wilt. He's got an 8-foot wingspan, one of the best player builds in the game. Release is really not that bad. It's not amazing, but add some shooting badges and add a three-point shoot. It's not a horrific release. And he is one of the most impactful and elite defensive cards in the game. I like Akeem and D-Rob a little bit more than I like Wilt, but I think he's good enough to go in the S tier still. And I think that finishes off this list quite well. So that is good for this video. I hope y'all did enjoy. If you did, make sure you hit that like button, leave a comment, and subscribe. I'll be back with more 2K content very, very soon, and I appreciate y'all. Peace.